Well, hey, everybody, this is Eric Waldrop with Your Next Step Leadership Coaching. And today we're having a conversation on the topic of leadership. And I can't think of anybody better to have this conversation with than my friend Dave Tofanelli. Dave, thanks for being here, friend.
I'm delighted to join you.
Yes. So, Dave, before we get into this topic, which I know you and I both love to talk about, give everybody a little bit of a snapshot that helps them understand your experience in leadership and why you're able to talk about this topic with credibility.
My leadership journey started in the military. I was in the Air Force. I was in Vietnam. I stayed in the Air Force for 25 years. I made it up to the senior officer ranks. And that journey taught me a lot about leading people. It infected me so much that when I left the military and went into private industry, I started to learn more and more about leadership, finally culminating with a doctorate in leadership studies. And I now teach leadership at a university. So I would say the last 20 years of my life has been solely focused on what are leaders, how do leaders become successful, why are they successful? And as you say, it's one of the things I like to talk about.
Yeah, I love it. So let's just dive right into some of these questions. What is leadership in your definition and opinion here?
Well, a simple definition of leadership is that it's an act of motivating a group of people to do something that both of you, the group, and you as the leader, have a common interest in or a common goal. Mm-hmm. Leaders, if you will, are concerned with promoting change. Leaders are concerned with a movement or moving people towards something. And that's different than management. Mm-hmm. Management is providing order and consistency. Now, a lot of times leaders are also managers and managers are also leaders. Yeah. But the focus of leadership is to help themselves and others do the right thing. Yeah. Going towards whatever that thing is you're trying to do. Yeah. They set direction, they inspire a vision, they create something new. It's about mapping out what they need to do to win, where win is defined as you and the group, not just you, mm-hmm. You and the group.
So in my experience, Dave, speak to this, that sometimes leaders, they have this vision and they have this goal that they want to accomplish with a specific team, and they want to accomplish a specific target, but then they find themselves having to manage more. Speak to how leaders can continue to lead while also recognizing they can't forget about management altogether, right?
Absolutely true. And here's the fault that I find that most leaders make. The leader says, this is what I want to do. And they go through a process of putting together a plan. And they put together a process of implementing that plan. And they oversee that implementation. Once it's implemented, they go on to the next thing. And that's mm-hmm. wrong. Mm-hmm. The mistake that a leader makes is not putting together systems and measurement and metrics that look at, was that successful? That is a management responsibility, but it's a leadership tool. Mm. So when you're faced with the situation where you have to get your hands dirty, so to speak, you have to be in the trenches. You can't forget, one, that you're moving towards a goal, yeah, and you're inspiring people towards that goal. But as the manager side of you has to look at results. Mm. Are we meeting those metrics? Because if you aren't meeting the metrics, you failed.
Right.
And the last part of that is, if those metrics are going south on you, if things are not going the way you want, then you have to start at the beginning. Mm-hmm. You have to go back and say, well, I wanted to do this, but was this right? Mm-hmm. Do I need to redesign? Should I bring my people in and talk this through? Mm-hmm. Because they're the ones doing most of the work. they can give you the help and the ideas to reinvent this process. And then you go through it again of implementation, metrics, measurement. So this is kind of where management and leadership come together.
Mhm.
It's not just saying, we're going over there, you follow me. There's a lot more to it than that.
Mhm. Yep. You said, Dave, initially when I asked you what the definition of leadership was, you said, a leader is someone who can motivate people to accomplish a common goal, something to that effect. What are the tools that leaders use to motivate people to move toward that goal?
The main tool that a leader uses is understanding what motivates each of their people.
That's good.
It's not a one size fits all. And again, that's another big mistake leaders make. They lead in one way. One of the questions I like to ask is I'll say to somebody, what type of leader are you? And they'll say, well, I'm a servant leader. I go, oh, so you're concerned just with serving people and you don't care if you really get there. Well, no, that's not what I said. Or they'll say, I'm a traditional leader. I said, oh, so you just put together a list of orders and off they go. Well, not quite. What leadership is about is understanding what motivates each of the people that you have. Let me give you a very short example. I once was in a situation where I was running a very large medical organization. And one of the things we had to do is file a lot of paperwork. There's a tremendous amount of paperwork in a medical organization. And I always had trouble getting that stuff filed. The people that I had in the records room, not very motivated. The doctors were always complaining they didn't have up-to-date files. And so I just sat down with them. And I said, look, I need this done. How are we going to do it? I had 4 kids in that room, and 2 of them said to me, I really don't want to be here, but I got to work. And I said, well, what do you want to do? I said, I want to go to school. Really? Yeah, I want to go to college. But, the classes I need are during the day, so I'm kind of screwed. And I said, well, I'll make you a deal. You make sure my records are filed, and I don't care if you show up during the day or not. Just make sure that my records are taken care of. After that, I ended up having the most pristine records organization in the entire hospital department.
Wow.
The reason for that is these kids would come in like at 10 at night and work till like 4 in the morning and do all the filing, go home, get some sleep, and go to school. And they were just, wow, this is wonderful. Yeah. Why? Because you took the time to see what motivates them. Everybody's motivated differently.
Right.
For some, it's salary. For some, it's time off. And one of the things that I really want to emphasize here is what motivates Generation X and Generation Y is very different than what motivated us.
Mm-hmm.
They're not, salary is a given now. You're going to get a certain amount of salary. They don't think about salary.
Mm-hmm.
Funny story about that was a friend of mine was complaining to me that he wanted to hire this person. They were a graphic designer, just came out of college, fantastic qualifications. And he said, look, I'm going to give you this huge salary, much bigger than I'd give everybody else. And I'll guarantee you these promotions. And she said, not what I'm looking for. See you. He goes, what did I do wrong? She wasn't looking for that.
Mm.
What she was looking for is what type of organization you have, what type of people are there, how am I going to fit in, what's the social aspects of this. These are things that tend to motivate this younger generation that we don't think about. So to come back to that point, you need to understand what motivates each person, and you don't learn that by rote, you learn that by speaking with them.
Yeah, I love that point. And this is why, wouldn't you agree, this is why leadership's hard, because it's not a one size fits all kind of a situation. It takes those individual conversations, learning your people, how they function, what inspires them, what motivates them, and it's a tailor-made approach, right?
Yeah, it is. That is, and you said it, that's what makes leadership hard. You know, another amusing thing to me is how many people say, well, I'm a leader. Well, why are you a leader? I'm a leader because I work for this company. I'm in charge of these 5 people, so I'm obviously a leader. Well, no, you aren't. You're what we call having positional power.
Right.
Because you have positional power doesn't make you a leader. It just means you have
Yeah.
a title.
Yeah.
Leadership's much more difficult than that.
Absolutely. And this is a great segue into what I also want to ask you. What would you say to the question, are some people just born natural leaders, and can others become good leaders through experience and education and coaching and things like that?
Well, certainly there's some traits that you see in all very successful leaders. They're intelligent. Successful leaders have good communication skills. They tend to be honest. They have higher integrity. And they tend to have really good emotional intelligence.
Mm,
They can perceive their own emotions and perceive emotions in others. But it's the experiences that are acquired along the way that make leaders. The best leaders have had very challenging job assignments and have looked for challenging job assignments. They're not content to stay in a job that does not provide some challenge.
mm. They get bored, right?
They get bored. Good leaders, people that have developed into good leaders, have mentors. They have senior people that have gone there before them that they bounce ideas off of, that they talk with, that they ask for critiques.
Mm,
They seek out training through various forms of education, reading, seminars, TED Talk videos, wherever they can find it, they seek out training and hands-on experience. They get in there and learn.
yeah.
New leaders often say to me, well, this is all fine, but I'm just a single guy. I work for this other guy. Where am I going to go get leadership experience? It's easier than you think. Volunteer to be the treasurer of your church.
Yeah.
If you screw up, they'll bless you and say, please leave. But they're not going to fire you. It's not going to hurt your career.
Right.
Go work for the Parent Teachers Association. Go, if you play sports, be the head umpire or something where you get leadership experience,
Yeah.
but it doesn't affect your day-to-day job.
Well, and what I hear you saying is seek out those experiences. Don't wait for them to come to you. Seek them out, in even different volunteer organizations and opportunities. Just be assertive in being able to develop your skills, right?
Exactly. Remember that, and this is a very important point, leaders are shaped by the experience,
Mm,
which means we are not born to be leaders. One of the analogies you could use is if your son is 6'5", you could say, well, he's going to be a great basketball player. Well, maybe, but maybe not.
mhm.
It depends on his athletic prowess, his motivation. He may just be a guy that's 6'5".
Right.
So it is the experience, the training, seeking out, the learning, the challenging, all those things are what comes together to make you a leader.
I love what you're saying about seek out challenging leadership opportunities, because as we grow through those challenges, we become more equipped with tools to handle leadership responsibility, right?
Yeah.
And
One of the biggest things that I see that holds back leaders is fear.
mm,
You fear making a mistake. Well, let me ask you a question about that. If you have a win, what do you learn from it? If something goes well and the boss pats you on the back, what did you learn from it?
probably not a whole lot.
Not a whole lot.
Yeah.
What if you fall on your face and make a huge error? That's learning.
And learning humility.
Yeah. So there's two parts to that. One is you've got to be willing to take the risk to fail.
Right.
And you want to be in an organization that makes it okay to fail.
That's good.
Now, certainly, if somebody fails too much,
Right.
they're not the right person for the organization.
Yeah.
But the leadership in an organization should say, okay, you failed. Now, what did we learn from that? How are we going to approach it differently next time? And the person matures and becomes a better leader because of it.
Dave, what I hear you talking about, especially when fear, we all as leaders feel that element of fear, but one of the specific ways, and I want you to speak to this, that leaders find courage in is coaches. Like I've known leaders who seek outside help and wisdom when they are fearful, and I felt this myself. And gosh, you've even been some help for me in this regard. But I find that leaders can help find courage in the midst of their fear from an outside mentor and a voice of wisdom to help them move forward in spite of their fear.
Right. The first thing that needs to happen is the realization that we all feel overwhelmed.
Mm.
We all get upset. We all feel anxious. And that's all coming from us facing uncertainty. Nobody likes uncertainty. We want to know what's going to happen next. And when we don't know, that causes a tension that we're trying to solve, that anxiousness. So, to stay focused despite that, you have to understand a term called compassionate management. What compassionate management means is that you understand what's happening to you and you seek out those that can help mentor you. Everybody, I don't care who they are, and I have 2 or 3 mentors now. Everybody needs a mentor and a coach. You need somebody that you can go to. I have 3 guys that I have known for 40 years, and they're all retired now. And as I head towards retirement, one of the things they're mentoring me about is how to get ready.
Yeah.
These are people that I talk to about once a month, once every 6 weeks, and they help me over those boundaries. And when I feel like I'm overwhelmed, they're the people I talk to. The first thing you have to do is take care of yourself. Before you can take care of anybody else, you have to take care of yourself. Yeah. You have to be able to, you can't support your team unless you yourself are stable. And the first way to do that is to identify your emotions. What is it that's causing me to be upset? That's number one. And then acknowledge the uncertainty. Yeah. Okay, this is happening. There's not anything I can do about it, or maybe there is something I can do about it, or maybe I can talk to this person, but there's an uncertainty there, an unpredictability. And brooding isn't going to help.
Yeah. 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 Dave, speak to the fact that, the hardest person that we will ever probably lead is ourselves.
Oh, absolutely.
Why is it so difficult for us to lead ourselves? Because that's really what you're talking about when you're talking about paying attention to your emotions, your insecurities, your mental health, all that kind of stuff. Speak to why it's so difficult for us to lead ourselves sometimes.
Because we know how to make very good excuses.
Yes, that's true, right?
Let me put it to you this way. You're trying to lose a few pounds. You know that, you put on 20 and you got to get rid of them. But you see a donut shop. And you say, one donut isn't going to hurt. And so you eat the donut. We do a very good job of justifying rather than looking at ourselves and saying, wow, did you screw the pooch on that one?
Yeah.
Part of being a great leader is admitting your failures to yourself. To yourself. and putting people around you that aren't afraid to say you failed,
Yep.
that you've given permission to say you failed, and then owning it.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of leaders that don't own a failure. It wasn't my fault. It was that bad employee. It wasn't my fault. The government just passed this new regulation. It wasn't my fault. Economic downturn.
Dave, what's the consequence of not owning it?
Consequence of not knowing it is failure. It's simple as that.
You just continue to repeat the same mistake.
You need to repeat the same thing. And worse, you become stagnant.
Mm.
Every organization succeeds because of competitive advantage. You have something that others can't duplicate.
That's good.
I don't care what type of organization you have, whether it's for-profit, not-for-profit, doesn't matter. You have an advantage that others that compete with you don't have. To maintain competitive advantage, you have to ask hard questions. And those questions are, what am I doing right or wrong? What do the people I serve need?
Yeah.
And if you continue to stagnate, the people you serve are changing, the people you lead are changing, you're not doing anything.
Mm.
And that creates that slow spiral.
So if a leader is listening to this and they're wanting to take to heart your wisdom here, how could they know or self-diagnose if they have stagnated in their leadership?
That's where metrics come in. That's where measurement comes in. When I work with leaders, I encourage them to put together what I call a dashboard.
Mm.
And that dashboard contains maybe the 10 most important things they have to do. And that dashboard and those 10 important things are subjective and measurable. Just for the sake of argument, let's talk in terms of a church. If you are the pastor of a church and you see that this Sunday you have 1,000 people attend, and next Sunday you have 980, and the one after that you have 960, and you continue to see this small decrease, that metric tells you something. I have a problem somewhere. Now, it doesn't tell you enough that I say, okay, here's a problem, go fix it. But the purpose of these metrics are to say to you, we're not doing something correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So that then you can start investigating,
Mm-hmm.
to define the problem.
So what I hear you saying is if a leader feels stagnant in their performance, to identify maybe those 7 to 10 measurable pieces in their life, the 7 to 10 measurable responsibilities, and then look at those and determine how am I performing in these.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's something very important. It's not just on the work site, it's in life.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I'll say to people is you can take it at work or you can take it at home, but you can't take it at home and at work.
Mm. What does that mean?
What that means is the support that comes from your family is very important to your success as a leader.
Mm.
Having those conversations with the people close to you, them understanding what you're going through, seeking their wisdom. The fact that they don't know anything about your organization is irrelevant. They know who you are.
Right.
And they can help you. They can help you by being a sounding board. They can help you by recognizing the emotions that you're displaying and help you thereby harness that.
Right.
You know, if you're coming home every night and your significant other saying, man, I don't want to be around you when you get home. Is there a signal there?
Yeah.
Is something going on and I need to get my hands around?
Because our leadership does affect our family, right?
Absolutely.
And being self-aware of what we're bringing home and what we're saying, man, that's so important.
Yeah.
That's so important. Okay, so let's get back to a question I wanted to ask you. How do you keep your team motivated if they are experiencing a lot of conflict and obstacles in their particular roles and on the way to accomplish the team goals? How do you keep them motivated in your experience?
There's a lot of things you can do. One of the things to do with your team that's important is to ask people what they need.
Just ask them what they need.
What do you need? It's a pretty simple question. One of the things I will tend to say as I walk around my organization is, how can I help? Is how
Yeah.
can I help? And you will get everything from my computer doesn't work to we need to change this organization, blah, blah, blah. Just how can I help?
Well, one of the things that you just kind of breezed by before you said, ask the questions, you said, when I walk around the organization, there's something powerful to your physical presence, right? Just walking around the organization, connecting with people. There's something just powerful that communicates, I care about you, just in that simple act, right?
Well, one of the things leaders sometimes do is they get tied to the office.
Mm,
They get tied to emails, they get tied to phone calls. So how do you overcome that?
right.
Um, I made it a point to get out of my office a couple times a day as a minimum and
Mm,
just walk around. Leaders, there's certain places that leaders can find out a wealth of information about their people. One of them is the break room. Go hang out in the break room.
yeah.
For some reason, within those four walls, people think that I can say anything I want, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And you walk in and there, I've walked into a break room and heard people gossiping about me.
Yeah.
Hang out in the break room a little bit.
It's a good way to find out the temperature of the organization, right?
Right. One of the things I often do in organizations that I've run is, you always have a lunchroom or break room or someplace where people congregate. I go there to eat my lunch with them.
Yeah.
Um, I would pop my head into people's cubicles. It was always at random. I mean, it wasn't like, okay, I take this path. No, it's go out and go for a walk and talk to people. And one of the things that I recommend that a leader do is take their key staff on a walk with them.
Mm-hmm.
What I used to do sometimes is say, I'm feeling really stiffened up. Let's go for a walk outside. It's a nice day. And I take them on a little 15-minute walk. It's funny how much better the communication becomes between the two of you when you're out walking together versus they're sitting in your office.
Okay, talk about the physical dynamics of walking together in the same direction as opposed to sitting in an office in more of a confrontational posture.
Well, men and women have an interesting dichotomy. If two men are facing each other, that's called competition. That's called leader and subordinate. That's called boss and diminutive. When you're together and walking together, you're equals. And your conversation becomes between equals.
That's good.
People that are sharing information.
It's all the subconscious stuff that's happening in the brain when we're doing this, right?
Right. Women is completely the opposite. When you're next to a woman, that implies that you're together. She didn't know you.
Mm-hmm.
You may not want to know you. When you're facing each other, she can see you. She can see what you're doing. So sometimes with women's subordinates, it's better to have a conversation looking at each other. Now, that doesn't mean you're in your office.
Mm-hmm.
It can be very informal. What a leader needs to do is be aware of time and place. Be aware of what's going on around them. Be aware of how they approach people. When I'm coming up to talk to a woman, I always approach her obliquely, not straight on. because I want to make sure that she's comfortable,
Mhm.
that she doesn't feel challenged, that she doesn't see my authority as something that is going to impede her, but rather we're just in different roles and I need her expertise
Mhm.
and we're going to share information.
I like that. So what I hear you saying is one way to help your team stay motivated through their own conflicts and challenges that they have is being able to just walk around the office, check in on people, take people for walks, let them know that you're on their team, listening to them, um, and in conversation, hearing their challenges, hearing their issues, and offering advice, coaching, things like that.
Yeah. And the final piece of that is modeling self care. They're going to watch what you do, they're going to watch how you take care of yourself.
That's good.
So if you're modeling it, they will do it too.
I like that.
They see you out taking a walk in the middle of the day to calm down or kind of reset, they'll do it too. Get away from they come at 8, they leave at 5. If they're not there during that time, then work isn't getting done. Come on.
Yeah.
What is accomplished at the end?
Right.
It's not how they get there.
Mm-hmm.
It's that we're successful as an organization.
Mm.
You can put in a zillion hours. You can get there every day at 7, leave every day at 6, and the boss goes, wow, he's really accomplishing anything, something. Well, no, he's playing video games, what he's doing. So
Right.
to adapt to how your people work.
Yeah. Dave, you talked about this a little while ago in terms of things that leaders have in common that make them successful, but speak to some of the common attributes that make leaders successful.
Well, a good leader shares a vision. A good leader has a simple vision that they share with everyone. I once saw a leader that was took over as president and CEO of a company, and they said, "Oh, I need to have a vision." So they wrote this 2-page document and distributed it. How many employees read a 2-page document? The best visions are very short, are very direct. When I ran a medical organization, my vision was patients first, and you measured everything by that.
Mm.
Patients first. That's what matters, and that's what we're going to do. And you share that vision, and everyone should be able to repeat that vision back to you. It should be concise. It should be easy to remember.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing you want to do is lead by example. You've got to. It's not good enough to just talk the talk. You've got to walk the walk.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be willing to do what you ask people to do.
Mm-hmm.
I am a successful leader is never the type of leader that says, okay, we need to get this project done and you're going to have to work some extra hours. See, I'm going home. They're there with you. You have to align your words with your actions. You have to demonstrate integrity in everything you do. Interestingly enough, it takes 1,000 attaboys to get rid of one failure. If you have an integrity fail or an ethical fail, your people will be lost to you. You're gone.
It's
You
hard to
have
come
to
back
have
from that. Yeah. Yeah.
you don't come back.
Yeah.
You have to be a good communicator. It's impossible to over communicate.
Mm-hmm.
It's impossible. And some leaders think, okay, I've told them what to do. No, it's impossible to over communicate with your people. Be willing to make the hard decisions. There's a lot of decisions out there that you're going to make that are tough ones. Don't shirk from them. Don't run away. Make the hard decision. You can always course correct.
Yeah.
Make the hard decision. Your people will respect you because they know where they're going.
Dave, I want to ask you a question about that. Leaders, you know, because we are still human too, there's an element sometimes that leaders they want to be friends with their teammates. Like they want to be liked. They want to um, sometimes maybe go to dinner with the people on their team, things like that. Talk about the struggle that leaders experience in that tension between wanting to be liked by their team, but having to make those hard decisions.
Unfortunately, a leader is the loneliest job in the organization. Yeah, you want to be liked. You want to have a cordial relationship, but you're the leader.
Right.
And you have to be able to make a hard decision that's going to affect people.
Mm.
For instance, how would you feel if you befriended 2 or 3 people and now it's time to downsize and you have to make layoffs? There has to be some social distancing.
Mm.
It's not good to socialize with your team unless you're socializing with the whole team.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, you're having a birthday party and everybody's invited and you all participate. But to go out to befriend, to go out with one person or another person or go out for drinks, it's not a good idea because it hurts your ability to make decisions. It causes you to be tainted. Says, I really like Jim a lot, and this decision is really going to affect his part of the organization. I don't know if I need, you really have to make the decision for the best of the organization, not for the best of one individual. And having those
I
social
like that.
relationships.
Dave, you've been in leadership for a while and obviously have led in the the medical domain of our culture and the hospital. Speak to what you've seen, well, and especially even in your teaching at your university. Speak to what you see maybe lacking from leaders that you see today.
Yeah, it's something that bugs me. I spent time teaching it. The number one thing I see is poor integrity. I see people that don't always keep their word.
Right.
They don't always walk the walk, that their behavior doesn't match what they're asking people to do. Poor integrity especially in young leaders, is a real problem.
Yeah.
Lack of adaptability. Come on, things are going to change. You have to adapt.
Be
you
flexible.
adapt to the situation. Yeah. You adapt to the person. They don't adapt to you. You adapt to them. You have to be willing to change your approach to be successful. Mm. One of the big things I see in poor leaders is that's the way I am, that's the way I do things, and you're failing.
Right.
You're not changing as the situation changes. Another problem I see is lack of vision. It's like they're looking right here. Mm-hmm. They're not looking down the road. Every organization and every leader should be thinking 5 years down the road and then 10 years down the road. Mm-hmm. What do I need to do in the next 5 years? And then what do I need to accomplish in 10 years? Now, for some people, it seems like a ridiculous planning horizon, but what it does is it helps you make decisions. It helps you have a roadmap. Mm-hmm. One of the analogies I use with people is, what if, here we are in High Point, North Carolina, and I said, I want you to drive to Huntington Beach, California, but you can't use GPS and you can't use a map. You have to just wing it, and you got to be there in 2 days. Good luck.
Yeah.
Now, what if I said, I want you to go to Huntington Beach and here's a GPS, some maps, and I give you a bunch of information that tells you what the pitfalls of your travel are going to be. Okay, I know where I'm going.
Yeah.
That's what setting a vision is about. Where am I going?
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to get there?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something leaders don't spend a lot of time doing, and they need to.
Yeah.
Being accountable, owning up. If you make a mistake, I made a mistake. Not being afraid to own what you're doing. A big one is poor communication skills. It drives me insane,
Mm-hmm.
the poor communication skills I see in people. And I spend most of my time at the undergraduate level working on communication with my students. You need to be able to communicate concisely, completely, and often. Communication can uh, eliminate a lot of problems for you. The more often you communicate, when you're communicating, you are, in effect, telling a person about you and what you expect, so they don't have any questions.
Dave, how do you know when you've communicated enough as a leader?
When they're repeating it back to you verbatim, then you've communicated enough.
Yeah. And so it
You've
really,
said it so many times that they can say it too.
yes.
You
So,
communicated.
so it really speaks to how we can't get tired of our redundancy. We must continue saying the same message, right?
Think of your employees sometimes as your children. How many times did you ask your son to take out the garbage before he did it without you asking him? In my case, it was a few years.
Yeah.
Redundancy is okay.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of it.
I love it. I love it. All right, let's skip to the last topic that I wanted you to provide some insight on. How do you continue to grow and develop your leadership skills? What are some leadership hacks that you've learned over the years that help you continue to stay fresh, excited, and continuing to grow?
Number one thing I would ask everybody to do is ask yourself one question. Why?
Mm,
Why am I here and why am I doing this?
man, that's so good.
You have to define your why. If you don't, you're rudderless. That why is going to change throughout your life, throughout your career. And it's a question you keep asking because that's going to drive what you're trying to accomplish.
Dave, why does it change throughout your life and career?
When I first started out, my why was getting promoted. How do I get promoted? How do I become more meaningful? Then my why became, how do I share my knowledge? When I realized it was, how do I share my knowledge? I also realized I needed to do something in order to be qualified to share my knowledge. I had to add education. What asking why does is it gives you a personal roadmap.
I really like that.
I keep a notebook. It's just, a loose leaf notebook. And it's tattered and worn. And you can roll through the pages and see my why changing
Mm.
as I keep notes, as I say, this is what I want to accomplish. These are the steps I'm going to take. Everybody should have one of those.
I love the simplicity, Dave, of what you're saying. It's not easy, but it is very simple to go. If you're floundering a little bit and you've lost some motivation, kind of unearth that why. Uh, why am I leading? And let that help develop the roadmap for you, right?
Yeah, think of it this way. When you're young, you're all about success. As we get older, we become more about significance. If you're going to go from success to significance, if you're going to leave a legacy, what's your why? Why am I here? Am
Hmm.
I just taking up space? Is my why to go fishing every day and then come home and watch Oprah?
Yeah.
What's your why? You add to that learning from failures.
Hmm.
Failures is the biggest learning experience you can have. Don't run away from them, embrace
Hmm.
them.
Oh, that's really good.
Appreciate and look for feedback. I know that it hurts when somebody says, you really did that terribly, you made all these mistakes. Learn from that and seek it out. The more you seek it out, the more you will learn, the stronger a leader you become.
Right? It's like don't let a fragile ego get in your way of becoming a better leader, right?
Exactly. What I tell people is get rid of your ego.
Yeah.
If you get rid of your ego, you become very successful. Ego stands in the way of almost everything we do.
Wow. Why is that?
I think because we're human. I think because it's a protection mechanism. I think because we all want to be patted on the head. We all want to be told we're doing a good job. But when you get rid of your ego, it becomes not about you.
Mm,
When it's not about you and it's about others, that's where real success and fulfillment comes.
I love that. Well, I would be remiss to not give you the platform and opportunity to speak about how your relationship with Jesus has affected your leadership, your desire for significance, uh, and coaching and helping others. Speak to that, Dave, in terms of that being part of your why as well.
For me, it's been a journey. It's been a journey of when I started as a young Christian, asking the Lord to bless things I was doing. And as those things became blessed, obviously my ego was fed. It took a long time for me to come to the realization that it isn't mine, it's His.
Hmm.
And I serve. He doesn't serve me, I serve Him.
Man, that's so good.
Everything I do is in service. And that's when I started to make the transition from success to significance.
Dave, how old were you when that change began to happen in your life?
I was in my late 30s
Yeah.
when that started to happen. You know, the first part of your career is growth, 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 run, 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 get ahead, get ahead, get ahead. But then I was blessed to be a successful leader. And all I wanted to do was sit in the big chair.
Mm,
And then I got there. I was the president and CEO of a medical center. I had 1,200 employees. There's another 700 or 800 doctors. I mean, it was a huge organization. And I'm sitting there one day and I thought, okay, now what? I've reached this pinnacle that I've been working for 20 years to reach. Is that all there is? And then is when I started to think about significance. What am I going to give back? How am I going to take what God is giving me and distribute it back to those who need it?
mm,
Whether it be in terms of knowledge, funds, time. I spend a lot of time talking with leaders. It's something that I feel I need to do. God has blessed me with this. It's not for me to keep. It's for me to give.
it's really become a calling, really, in your life, hasn't it?
Yeah. You know, God has blessed all of us with certain uh, things that we can do well.
Right.
Some people are great administrators. Some people have a gift for mercy. Uh, I seem to have a gift for being able to help people understand how to lead, what they're doing that they can do better, how they can influence the people around them. And so that's what I drive at.
Hmm.
And I am always praying that our Lord puts somebody in front of me in some way that I can then influence for Him. That's what I'm here to do.
I love it. I love it. One of the most powerful things that is most resonating with me from this whole conversation we've been on is the fact that discovering your why, discovering your why really leads to the calling and leads to the, what I heard you say, kind of the roadmap
Mhm.
that leaders can identify for themselves. Once they know their why, do the deep work of knowing your why and then allowing that to really help you go to the next step in your leadership journey. And
Leaders, what I would say to you is, if you're a leader out there, is do not be afraid to deep dive.
mm,
Do not be afraid to really look in those dusty corners of yourself to say, why am I here? Why am I doing this? Is my ego, is this about ego? Is this about service? And ask yourself those hard questions.
yeah. Well, Dave, this has been so good. I'm going to love having this on my channel just so that I can refer back to it when I forget how to lead.
Well, I doubt that's going to happen.
But all right, so I'm going to give you the floor to say anything else that you want to. Is anything still resonating? Any last words for leaders that are watching this right now? Any encouragement?
One of the things I would ask is that you lead with integrity above all else. Refuse to settle for mediocrity. In all things you do, keep two things in mind: your service to our Lord and to be the best at whatever that thing is you're trying to do. And take everybody with you.
That's good.
It's not about you.
Yeah.
It's about those around you.
Yeah. Well, that is a wonderful place to stop. And Dave, again, thank you so much. You've been a coach and a mentor for me for about probably the last 5 years. And I have learned so much from you. You've been a great friend as well. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom and experience that you've gained over these years. And guys, if you're watching, I hope that you will be blessed by this and even share this with your friends. If you know anyone struggling and really trying to understand leadership in their life and trying to go to the next step, please share this with them because I think it could be helpful. And but thank you so much for joining us. And hey, we'll see you next time.